Okay, we're back. A surprise show. I got a surprise guest with me, one of my strongest supporters. Introduce yourself.
My name is Ronald. I'm a strong supporter of Rob. I subscribe to all his channels and everything. His Google Plus pages. He is a cool dude. And I'm here today on this Hangout live on air.
All right. So basically, one of the things that we've talked about, and I think is like really cool because like none of the devices that I have, except for when he has just told me now the Evo 3D has a Lollipop ROM, caught my attention. But I wanted to give him some time to kind of show you guys his S3, and it's running CM12, correct?
Yep.
All right, man.
This is my
Show us
Galaxy
that.
S3. This is my Galaxy S3. We go to about phone running. Sorry about the computer because the computer camera is not that good. Running 5.0.2 Lollipop CM12. The Easter egg on Lollipop. Can't see it. Um, the Cyan Engine mod Easter egg. So far with CM12, it's smooth and stable, but the battery is awful.
Well, how long are you getting on it?
Um, Now when I was on 5.0, the original build, I got more at least if I was using it moderately, probably about a day. Right now, I'm not even hitting half a day. Earlier actually, my battery wouldn't charge. I had to play with it and everything. Uh, it's diminished, and a lot of people. I'm going on XDA and looking around. A lot of people saying there's a miscellaneous bug that was on the Nexus 6, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just killing people's battery. Performance, still good. I mean, it was good on KitKat on CM11, but with TouchWiz was awful. They just slowed down the whole phone.
All right. Let me ask you this, um, because when you look across like several different forums, people they have this opinion about Lollipop where even though like they had a developer preview all the way on up to when they announced its actual name, which was going to be given Lollipop, and then the release of it. Some people still say that it was kind of released too soon with all the bugs and the issues that's been going on since the release of Lollipop. That's giving kind of it's giving Google such a bad rep right now. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, see, this is my thing. It was kind of released too soon because if you remember, all the apps like Google Plus, Hangouts, Keep, um, even Chrome were still using the old KitKat version that looked kind of old and pale. Um, they should have took more time on Lollipop. And you know how Apple with iOS does the developer preview, like with iOS 8 beta 1 and stuff like that.
Yeah,
They should. I don't think they should have did that because I mean it helps out a lot of people. Like if someone finds a bug, hey, they attach it to their bug report, send it to Google, but at the same time, it's like not everyone's gonna notice something's wrong. They should have took more time on Lollipop.
I agree with you
And
there. I think on like the whole thing, and this is what's kind of weird. It's kind of like an oxymoron right here. You had the developer preview that was out, and like the way I look at it, it was kind of like a way for them to catch bugs. So when Lollipop was released, it would have been like pure smooth, no issues, just fresh, new experience, new UI layout, and no problems. But like you said, they released it too soon, and I think that with a developer preview, they could have kind of continued that on. I think people would have waited more patiently with those developer previews being sent out than just to saying, okay, here's like the official Lollipop, and then you got battery issues, you got storage issues, and the works.
the the Nexus 9 is the prime example of issues. Like you remember with the 5.0 Lollipop release that the Nexus 9 was having battery overheating issues.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, it's been fixed with the 5.0.1 update, but at the same time, it's like people buying this brand new. How much is a tablet? Like $600.
Around there, yeah.
Yeah, and they're experiencing problems. I'm sorry, experiencing problems with the tablet, and it's like, hey, I just dropped $600 on it. Why am I having these issues? Like with the Nexus 6, well, nah, it's not really a issue, but you know the screen burning problem. That's not a
Yeah,
software issue, but
yeah.
that phone is also like $600.
Yeah, I seen multiple reviews from different people about that issue with the screen burn, and that's man, I don't know. Like I think like right now the way that it sits is and it's just my opinion that with Android it surpassed iOS a while back. I'd say the moment of pass happened maybe late 2011, kind of like into 2012. It started to get
Mhm.
better. Um, I think this is what frustrates me is because now that it kind of sits on top, and even though Apple fanboys and them can scream all they want that that's not true, it kind of is. It's like as they get past, they kind of like start to lax as iOS catches up, which in a way is not bad because the innovation between both companies leads to better competition and better technology for us. But at the same time too, like if you want to keep your spot, like you got to stay hungry for it and keep going on. I mean, their direction with wearables. I mean, wearables are nice, but to me that's gimmicky. That's not going to stop people from just whipping their phone out and being on it. That's
Yeah.
um, their whole thing with like the Nexus player. Like that's a long time coming. That's something that I really wish they had done years ago. I mean, they kind of did with Nexus
Nexus Q.
Q. Yeah, the Nexus Q that they kind of did, but I mean, at the same time too, it was just like with the Nexus Q, I felt like they didn't put too much thought into it. With the player, it seems pretty cool. Like I've seen the reviews from Josh from what would Josh do, and it seems pretty solid. But then at the same time too, um, other people are reporting some bugs with it as well, which is like why I've kind of shied away from getting it. Normally, with like I think one person put up a review about the connection with HDMI. I don't know how credible that is. That the person just like randomly threw it up on a forum, and usually I base how people say things just like what makes sense when they type out their thoughts. And sometimes people just they go off and maybe they didn't do something right, maybe they plugged it in wrong, and they're not just in tune with that, which can happen. But I don't know. They were saying there was some stuff with like the HDMI connectivity and how sometimes you won't even catch it on your screen when you power on the Nexus player. I was like, wow. I hope that's not for every one of them.
Hmm. And
But I
see,
mean,
um, sorry, go
no,
ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Um, so see, with me, when the Lollipop was first announced, Android 5.0 Lollipop, you know what I really thought it was? I thought it was just like you remember how iOS or Apple did the transition from iOS 6 to iOS 7, but
Yeah,
really didn't change anything, added a few new features like the control panel and stuff like that.
yeah, I remember that.
Um, that's what I thought Lollipop was to Kit Kat. I thought it wasn't nothing much than an overlay. And then Shin was telling me, hey, Lollipop is awesome and this and that. And I wasn't trying to listen to him. But when I got my hands on Lollipop, I was like, wow, this is awesome. But I did find some things that are still the same that are not ever going to change
Right.
in Android. Um, and pretty much, yeah, Lollipop is awesome. But if all these issues, and this is on Sam's part, not Google's part, like camera issues and playback, media playback issues and stuff, if those were fixed, then it will become my daily driver because I have some thoughts here and then. Hey, should I go back to KitKat? Hey, should I go back to KitKat? And I talk myself out of it. But at the same time, sometimes I do need the camera. Sometimes I do want to listen to music.
Right.
I mean, I have the RCA tablet, the one you have, but
Yeah.
that's not on me all the time because it requires Wi-Fi most of the time.
Yeah. Let me ask you something about Lollipop. This is like one question that like even like a couple of people have asked me. Does it still carry on the same issue that KitKat had with the external SD card write issue, or have they actually opened that up in Lollipop, where like the you could actually write things to your external SD card instead of like how it was before. Because that was like a big problem with KitKat, and that's like one of the reasons why people needed to root KitKat so much was you could have an external SD card, but if you wanted to move things to it, it wouldn't allow it, but you could view things from it.
That's a funny thing. Every once in a while that happens to me. It's like an on and off thing, but that may be a CM issue and not a Google issue. Um, I can tell you this: I cannot install most APKs. I cannot install at all from my SD card. But if they're on the phone, I can install them, and
Yeah, I
that's
think.
funny because I don't understand how that's happening.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, that's one thing where I think like Google was not thinking. Period was, you had from alpha, beta, and all the way up on till Jelly Bean. You had the ability to install files from your SD card, application from your SD card. You can write certain things to your SD card. You can move applications to SD card, no problems. And then it was like because a lot of manufacturers started going with the unibody style and no expandable memory, it was like, well, they had Google Drive, and that would work. And to me, I was like, where did they actually sit down and think that this would totally replace an external SD card? Because you can
Apple.
store your music, you can store your music, your videos, pictures, but one thing you can't do with Drive is you can't like move a portion of your application to it and still run it on your device. And that's what most
Yeah.
people had complained. That's what I was like, wow, where did Google? Who had Google thought this? That's what I was thinking. Oh, I'd shoot them for that one. Um,
See, I remember when I was back on Gingerbread. You remember the PCD Venture
yeah.
Virgin Mobile used to have?
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
I had that phone. I had the Chaser also. I remember I always used to store everything on the SD card because those phones didn't have any storage on them. But ever since Ice Cream Sandwich, when I had the Evo 3D, I mean, there's no need to do that anymore because Evo had at least like 4 gigs of storage, as I remember.
Yeah, it
And
did.
I mean, I could store like 70, 80 apps up there. And most of them were games. So I never need to do that anymore. And I think Ice Cream Sandwich got eliminated the SD card, moved the apps to the SD card,
Yeah.
and it was brought back in KitKat, I believe. I don't remember. Um, but even then, I mean, sometimes stuff wouldn't work, especially with KitKat. Not KitKat, but Lollipop on my phone. Some things would just fall apart. Like, for example, boot animations. If I try to move a boot animation, half of it, like if I try to move it from one location to the other, half of it would move, and then it would be all messed up and everything, and I would have to re-download everything. Then most of the time it wouldn't work, and that made me mad. That was to my SD card. For example, I always back up stuff. It's back up stuff to my SD card. Like when you're changing a ROM, you want to back up stuff to your SD card before you do anything because you don't want to store it on your phone because you're gonna have to wipe out your phone anyways.
Hmm.
Sometimes I would have problems like boot animations I want to keep, APKs I want to keep, and stuff like that to work on the new ROM I'm porting. I would have problem moving those over because half of it would move and then half of it would stay. And that was on Lollipop. Sometimes it would happen on KitKat. Um, Jelly Bean 4.3
Yeah.
when I first when I first got the phone, it didn't have that problem.
Yeah. I don't know.
And that's the
It's like, but uh, one thing that actually like totally like blows my mind here. I was thinking about it because the other day I still have my Galaxy S2 Epic 4G Touch with version. I still have that lying around. And every now and then, I like to see what kind of ROMs they have because, like, a good buddy of mine, he uses the phone I used to have because I had like four of them, and I gave him one that I was using. And I tried to look to see if they had Lollipop on it. I noticed like development for that phone kind of died down. And like what you just mentioned to me earlier, that the Evo actually has a Lollipop ROM. That's kind of amazing with that phone. Like development is still alive and kicking for it. But one of the things that I do kind of frown upon is with the whole issue of like lock bootloaders and like
hmm
secured boot images because that's like as I mentioned in the earlier video, that is one reason why my warp sync cannot be rooted is because of that secured boot image. And it has an unlocked bootloader, but with that boot image being secured, you can't really get an exploit to root your phone. And I just noticed that with a lot of manufacturers, they're starting to go heavy, like with like Samsung and the Knox, where they're trying to make it to where they can tell if you rooted your device.
I want to get on Knox. Um, Samsung Knox. Everyone that's watching, Samsung Knox is awful. That's one reason why. Just one reason. I mean, I love Samsung. I'm a high Samsung supporter. I'm a Samsung fanboy, if you want to call me that. Um, but Knox is awful. Um, Somehow I don't know how I did it when I was rooting my phone. I used what is that root method? Towel root. I
Yeah,
used Tower to root my phone. Somehow I did not trip Knox because they made it to where with the Android 4.3 update that Knox, since this is a going on a 3-year-old phone, they didn't have Knox back in 2012. Um, but with the 4.3 update, they made Knox built in, and somehow when I was rooting and installing Super SU and everything like that, I didn't trip it. But I would not recommend anybody to. I wouldn't say not to root their phone, but just be careful when you do it. Just
yeah,
please be careful.
that is one thing. When you told me that you actually had got your phone rooted without tripping Knox, I was like, I was going through every forum, like, how did he do this? Because that would be such huge information for everybody to know, a way to get around that. Because exactly, for those who don't know what Knox is, it's like a software patch, like a gate. Think of it in layman terms like a gate. And if you take the key and you unlock the gate, there's no way you can relock the gate, and that's how Samsung would know you unlocked it because the
Hmm.
gate's wide open. And
And then, sorry, sorry for
no, go ahead.
interrupting. I do want to mention this. And then Virgin Mobile would realize that you unlocked your phone also, and if you, let's say, you drop your phone or your phone just out of nowhere stops working, you know how you can get a replacement from Virgin Mobile for free.
Yeah,
They're not giving you that because you're out of warranty. You voided your warranty. And one time my phone had did something crazy, would not turn on at all, and I finally got it fixed. I had to press volume down at home and power button to get it back in the bootloader, but I was freaking out too much. I had to call Virgin. They said my phone was still in warranty, so I was going through my phone and I didn't trip Knox because I went back to TouchWiz right before I messed up the phone, and I went up there and I didn't trip it, and I was like, wow. Because every time I mess up something or I have to format something, I go back to the stock ROM to see if everything's fine, and then I reflash the ROM I was on, which is CM or what is that other ROM? Erofria.
I haven't heard of that one.
Um, it's they made. I forgot the dude's name. Hold on, let me search it up. But he made a lollipop ROM. He also made a lollipop ROM for the Galaxy S3, the Sprint version, and Boost. I'll look at it later.
Yeah,
And it brings some extra features more than CM has, but the deal breaker is the camera. The camera doesn't work at all. The camera with CM12 is tricky. You got to work with it.
it's always the
So
camera.
Knox, don't just be careful when you root your phone, please. All Galaxy S3 users or S5.
Yeah, my mom and my sister have the S5. I was gonna root my mom's phone for her, but then I was thinking too, like at the same time, if anything happens, I know like T-Mobile will reject it if Knox is tripped. Um, so I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do it. Because my mom's not tech savvy, so if anything went wrong, she wouldn't know how to bring it all back to stock. So like, forget it. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's one thing I hate. The fact that Max Lee with High on Android and how he has his stand against, I believe it's Verizon, AT&T, because every device that they want to put out now, uh, you know, they want block bootloaders. And to me, that's just like I try to find like a middle walkway because I understand the carrier's point of view is that they offer services like using your phone as a hotspot. They don't want people to do that for
Mhm.
free. Service they want people to pay for. At the same time, too, it's like the flip side to it is if I pay for unlimited data, then why can't I use my phone as a hotspot with that unlimited data to feed it to any other device that I have? I mean, obviously,
Exactly.
my tablet's not bought by AT&T as the phone that I got from AT&T is. So how the hell would they even get data to my tablet? You know, especially if it's only Wi-Fi capable and it doesn't have like a spot for like a SIM card. So I mean, like that's it's always a back and forth. That's one thing I hate about carriers is, to me, honestly, they're just super greedy. They're very greedy.
And one thing I want to get on that is about Virgin Mobile. Where do I start? You're on Boost Mobile, right?
I jumped to Boost. I left Virgin for Boost Mobile, even though they are
I might,
basically the same.
yeah, I might do that soon, dude. Um, Virgin Mobile. Okay, so Virgin Mobile. I think you mentioned this in one of your videos. Virgin Mobile used to be always on top with phones. Like once they get a phone, Boost would get it like 3 months, 4 months later. Like for example, the iPhone 5S. When they got that, Boost got it way after them. That's not happening anymore because I mean, Boost has the 6 and the 6 Plus. We still have the 5S. Y'all have the Sharp Aquos Crystal. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Aqua
Yeah.
Crystal.
Virgin Mobile's supposed to be getting it, but it hasn't happened yet. But okay, my thing with their plans, they just introduced all unlimited plans. 35, 45, 55 months or dollars a month. Um my thing is this. They all have unlimited, but you're only limited to 250 megabytes. But it's unlimited data. But when it gets reduced, your phone is like it feels like it's slower than 3G.
Yeah, definitely.
And
You going? I'm with you on
uh,
this one.
sorry. Um and so like sometimes I do have to use a hotspot because sometimes I bring my tablet with me. Like I play, the game Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Yeah,
Everything I have up there is cloud saved. So whenever I want to save something or whenever I want to load something or save something, I can't do it because even if I have my phone tethered or my tablet tethered with my phone, it's so slow. I can't. Everything's trying to load, but it just times out. And that's the thing that sucks about it. Like I can't barely use data.
yeah. I don't. That's one thing that I think I did a video about that. I was, and like I was when I did that video, I was trying to fight back so much anger. I was really angry when I found out that they were going to reduce the throttle speeds from 256 kilobytes down to 128, and I was like, why? I mean, why would you do that? 128 kilobytes of speed when you're throttled. I mean, yeah, it'll load up, Facebook, semi okay, Google Plus, semi okay, Twitter, But when you actually try to do things, maybe watch a video on Facebook or even download a photo, it just it's like comparing it to having Wi-Fi in your home versus AOL dial-up. It's the same analogy for that I could give for it, and I was like, why would they even do that? I mean, for one, some people don't actually like read the fine print when they say unlimited data, and the fact that they're not turning off your data makes it unlimited. So they kind of got people there with that whole unlimited BS. But then you want to piss off more people by reducing from 256, which on Virgin Mobile could get you a decent video, maybe at low resolution play on YouTube. Now you can't even do that. Like you'll sit there for 5 minutes with that freaking ring just spinning and spinning, and you're just waiting. You'll put your phone down. You'll go get a drink of water. You'll come back, and maybe it played like 1 second, and then it's still buffering. And you're like, you want to throw your phone. I will never understand why carriers did this. Even Boost Mobile does this too. Um, I don't know if Cricket does it the same speed rate, but I do know that Boost does it too. I know that this whole thing is with Sprint, and I believe AT&T does it too, and so does Verizon. I just don't get carriers. Like I said, they're so greedy. They want money, but they don't want to give you like the best service you can get, which is why I quit Verizon when I used to work for them as one of their CSRs, and I used to deal with so many people who would give me just straight out stories of how they need their phone for this and that, and it's like, I want to help these people, but I can't because my hands are tied. So I just up and quit Verizon. Like, screw you guys. You guys are money hungry, and you guys are crooks, and I can't work for it. So I quit.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never
All right.
been or touched a Verizon phone since.
And I have one more thing. Let's talk Apple. Let's talk Apple.
Okay.
All right. So I think you've mentioned in a previous video why, and you sent me a link also to why you do not support Apple, their practices.
Hmm.
Um, that video link you sent me is more than true. I found it crazy that people are killing themselves just
Yeah.
because. I mean, and it's my thing with Apple is ever since Steve Jobs passed back in 2011, the company hasn't been the same. I mean, come on, the iPhone 6 Plus looks ridiculous compared to an iPhone 4S. Honestly, in my opinion, I mean, I support Apple a little bit. I like the iOS platform; it's easy to use, but at the same time, they need to they need to play catch up because they think they are, and they're really not. I mean, the smartwatch, really, Apple Pay, honestly. I mean, those turned out to be a big fail, and the Apple Watch isn't even here yet.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, go ahead.
sorry, um, Apple Pay. You know how everybody's locking out Apple Pay, like Walgreens and who else? Rite
Uh,
Aid.
I think CVS still uses them because I went by there the other day and they have their logo, but I think they are locking them out, or if they hadn't already. But here in Phoenix, they accept Apple Pay because they have their little logo and stuff. Um, I don't know who else did. I'm not sure.
My thing. Okay, so my thing is how to Google Wallet. You know, Google Wallet's been here since like 2010, 2009. Why
Yeah.
is Google Wallet starting to blow up now and become a big hit since Apple Pay
It
came or
always.
was released?
I got my own. Um,
Yeah.
the, the way I look at that, honestly, is Apple used to be the trendsetter. I will never take that away from Apple when it came to it. I mean, when they brought out the iPhone, the original iPhone, like you had every other carrier trying to produce their own type. So even though that Android has surpassed iOS, um, people who remember like when the dawning age of the smartphone and the touch screen, they still look to Apple as to being the leader. So like if Google, like you said, Google came out with Google Wallet. This has been out for a while. I've used it. It works great. Only those who are like deeply involved with mobile tech know about it and know
Mhm.
exactly what it's capable of. The average consumer didn't. They would hear people talk about Google Wallet and they would be like some concern issues like, well, how do I know that my banking information is not going to get leaked? You know, they will always shy away from it. As soon as Apple comes out with Apple Pay and they show that you can do tap to pay with NFC technology, um, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay. Oh, Google Wallet, that's the same thing. Oh, I could use that. And, they just start jumping on the bandwagon because, Apple's like, Apple always tries to take, they try to say that they're the innovators of technology. And when they do it, they came up with it first, or if they didn't come up with it first, they try to market it off that they did it better. And it was like, so people then want to jump on a bandwagon and be like, oh, well, I got my Google Wallet card now, and I got my Google Wallet set up, and it's like, yeah, you've had the ability to do that for 2 years. Come on. But it's always that thing. It's always that people look to Apple to lead first, and then follow with either decides to come out with their own. The same thing will happen with them, and that's one thing that just really frustrates me about people who start to get into mobile tech. Um, they always think that things are done where Apple kind of like starts creating it first, or they have this conspiracy theory that Apple's been working in the labs for like 5 years developing this technology, and someone snuck in, stole it, and gave it to Google or whoever. And it's like, really? I mean, Google's a giant tech company. Why would they need to steal from Apple to create their own ideas? Um, Usually, that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
It's a back and forth thing.
And and one thing, I'm sorry, but I have to pause real quick. I have to go grab my nephew. He's on the loose.
Go for it.
All right, I'm gonna. How do I turn the camera off for a second? Because I've never done this before.
I guess.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Well, so anyways, I'll continue on while Ronald does what he's got to do. But anyway, so going back to that for those of you guys who are watching. Um, yeah, it's always going that way. It's always like as if Apple leads, even though they're not leading in certain things. They are in some, and they are not in other parts. People still think that Apple is like the front runner to something, and unless they do it, it's not worth people getting involved in their own platform. Sad but true. I really wish it wasn't like that, but I mean, and that's the way it is. We can go from there. So besides that, hope you guys are enjoying this. By the way, um, me and Ronald just decided to come up with this. So we'll see how this goes, and this goes great. I want to add a couple of people in, and real quick while we're on the pause, I do want to let people know that if you guys want to join the panel, I'm not going to try and limit it to just one or two or three people. You know, I'm at least thinking maybe five or six. I'll probably check out how many I can have on at one time. But if you guys are interested in joining the panel, then hit me up with the email tsc.collab@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you guys on that. It was like something like fun. Also,
All right, I'm back,
and
man.
all right,
Sorry.
no, it's cool. One other thing I wanted to mention to you, since you have the same tablet as me, and this is something that I got a lot of criticism from people on this video because it's like when I rooted the RCA tablet, I was kind of just going on a hunch, and I got it rooted, and so I was trying to explain it, and I guess the way I explain things, maybe sometimes people can't gravitate to exactly what I'm saying, what to do step by step. So a lot of people are like, prove it, prove it, prove it, prove it. And it was like over and over and over again. I'm like, gosh, my laptop crapped out. I had to send it off to get repaired. And I'm like, just sitting there just twitching my thumbs like, where the hell's my tablet? I got to make this video for these guys, calm them all down. Like, I don't feel like I have to do things for people on YouTube, but I choose to. And so I gotta do another video later on this week because I found a different method on how to root the RCA tablet without a PC, and it's an application called iRoot, and it's really simple. You download it, and right when you download it, it launches like an application, and there's like a spot that says, root. Click that, has this little weird Japanese character animal just sitting there as it's rooting, and it just rooted it because like what happened with my tablet was kind of screwed up. Um, I was messing around with it and I left it on my bed. And when I came back down, I picked up my tablet, I turned the screen on, and my thumb registered a touch in Super SU, which what touched was unroot, a full unroot. So it unrooted, and I was like, I don't have my laptop. How the hell am I going to root this thing again? Because I had Link to SD running on here just so I can push apps to a second partition on my SD card. And so I just decided to go through like a different like no PC required root methods, and I found iRoot and I tried it and it worked. So I unrooted it again and tried it and it worked again. So I'm actually gonna unroot it, and do a video, and hopefully this will help all those people who's just going bananas on that one video about how to root the RCA tablet. I didn't even think this thing was that popular. Like all of a sudden
Yeah,
I get like a ton of messages.
especially on you remember the third or it was $30 on Black Friday. But
Yeah.
the thing with my tablet is it came with KitKat. Um, I don't know if I don't know if we have the same tablet, but like a different like variant or something. Because you remember that you showed me your model number and I showed you my model number,
Yeah.
and they were different. You had like W23, I had W22.
Right.
Um, the it won't root. I use Kingo root because you remember that you made a video rooting the RCA tablet with that, and I tried to use that, but it did not root because it said request device timeout after I rooted it, or after it rebooted the tablet, and it said request timeout on the computer. Um, I don't know what happened. I mean, I cannot root it.
Well, probably, like I said, the different method that I found, the iRoot. I mean, if you Google search it, it's just gonna pop up. It's from this. I think it's from the same people who created Root Master 1.3.6. You could try that method. Uh, the tablets, they look identical. The only difference is I believe of course, like the software version is different and the processor is different. I believe yours has a quad core processor
Hmm.
and mine's is dual core. So the processing chips are completely different on that, um, as well as the software. So it just could be the fact that this one is running a different chip, and of course, like the operating system is older. It's Jelly Bean. So try the iRoot method and see if that works. Um, I'll shoot you a link for it. I'll find it and I'll shoot you the link on Hangouts, and then you can try that. See if that works. Because I have like so many different root methods saved up on Drive. I tried every one of them on the warp sync and it didn't work. I was so pissed off. I was like, gosh, one of them has to work. None of them. I even tried that old one, Z4 root. I was like crossing my fingers on that. That didn't work for the warp sync. So, um, yeah, try iRoot and see if that actually helps. Or you can try Root Genius because I think Root Genius was there's one that's specifically for KitKat, so you might want to try that one too. See if that helps.
All right, and another thing I want to get on the Desire 601 HTC Desire. My friend Chin, I remember I kept coming to you about him not being able to root. I don't know what he did because I was helping him. I think partially it was my fault that I tried to help him with the root
Yeah,
access, but somehow he got recovery up there. But I don't think he got, was it S off, S on, or something like that. He didn't do something right. He made it to where I think he has recovery. He said he has TWRP, twerk recovery, but he doesn't have root access.
yeah. See, that's where I'm stumped on too because he actually like he was messaging me about it, and it's hard for me to just you know take time away from my family because I'm a family guy. I got three kids running around right now. I have a fourth one on the way. Um, And so my time, finding time to do videos for my YouTube channel, and then finding root methods for devices that I own, and then taking care of my kids as well. It's pretty hectic. So I try to help him as much as I can. And he lost me at the point like he was asking me things like, does he have to wipe Dalvik cache to root? And I was like, no, why? Why would you touch that? Like the only thing you're using Twerk is to flash the SU zip, which carries binaries that will install the binaries on your device. That way, when you download and you install Super SU, it's just going to pop up that you need to update your binaries and install Super SU.
Hmm. And
And
that's where he lost me.
I don't know what he did, and I feel totally bad because I told him I had sold the 601 to a friend, and he was like asking me like, why didn't I give it to him and this and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, one shipping, two like he'll ask me for help, and then he'll just disappear for a couple of days. So
Yeah. And I feel really bad too because I mean I could help him with the basic functions of rooting the phone, but I couldn't do all the HTC stuff because I've never rooted the HTC phone. I didn't root my Evo because I honestly knew nothing about technology back then. I got on technology when I had my Victory because it was awesome. But I felt bad because like stuff like S off and all these other programs like htcdev.com or something like that, I couldn't help him with that because I didn't know what it did. I could only do the basic stuff like plugging up to a computer, downloading like super SU files, and doing basic commands on the computer. So I kind of
yeah,
felt bad too.
yeah. Like one of the things I was trying to explain to him is because you got to unlock the bootloader with the Desire 601. So for those of you guys who own the 601 and are having trouble with the root, pay heed to this part right now. But with the 601 and with HTC devices in general, when rooting them, you have to unlock the bootloader. They some of them come with locked bootloaders, and that's the first thing you're going to want to have to do. So that's why HTC Dev comes into play because you need to get the token, which unlocks your bootloader, and you're going to use ADB to push all these commands through. That's how it unlocks the bootloader. Once the bootloader is unlocked, you can push in recovery, which I believe Chin made it that far because obviously he got tort recovery on there. Where he went wrong, I don't know. Like I really can't understand where he went wrong on there because the next option was to flash in the binaries, the SU binaries, and I had multiple Google accounts that I wanted to get rid of and just consolidate it down to one. So without me even thinking, and this is just my bad on this one, when I deleted my other Google account that had all my stuff on Drive, all those just went away, and I was like, crap.
Mhm.
Because he would click a link, and he would be like, the link doesn't exist. It says file doesn't exist no more. And I'm like, oh crap, that was from the old Google account. So like, I try to find like all these different SU binaries that were up to date, and I told him try those, flash those in, see if that works. None of them worked, and from there, then he just started asking different questions. And one of the things that's hard for me is like if I'm not physically there with you, I don't know what you did or what you're doing, so I can't tell you where you
Mhm.
went wrong. Like you have to, um, and this is a good rule of thumb to anybody who's trying it out for the first time. Sounds a little weird, but write down or keep like a little note with your tablet or something of each thing you did as you're going through, especially with HTC devices because they're a pain in the butt to root. But then you'll have a reference point in your timeline of notes of what you did where you might have gone wrong when you start asking someone who has done it any questions about how they did it. Then if your notes don't match up, or if you say like I did this and then that person's like wait a minute, you weren't supposed to do that, well then now you have a reference point of where you went wrong. uh, that's something that he unfortunately he didn't do, and I didn't think about that to tell him to do that. So when I began helping him, it would have really helped out. So that's like, I feel really bad that like I let him down, that he couldn't get his Desire 601 rooted, and I hope at some point I hope he can get it back to a stock point. Um, and maybe there's probably another developer out there who's more knowledgeable than I am that can really help him out. Like I said, like I don't know everything, I know enough, so that's my
Mhm.
point. Hopefully he gets it where he needs to get it.
And that's exactly how I am too. I mean, I have to be physically there to see what happened. I mean, like I said, I can only help him out with the basic stuff with rooting the 601, but at least I'm there trying to help him, trying to see what's going wrong, and I can't be there for him. And I'm honestly, I gotta say this, Chin, I'm sorry for getting mad at you all those times, because I always used to get mad at him about what he did and stuff like that, because I have little patience. But the 601, I mean, the only thing I had to do to root my S3 was use what is the application I just said?
Tower root.
Um, Tailroot. That's what I had to use. But with my Victor, I had to use Odin, which is like a Samsung thing.
Yeah.
Isn't it a Motorola? Don't Motorola's have to use at the
The
root?
Odin, I don't know if they do. I really haven't really touched much with Motorola, but I think they have something similar to that. I'm not sure. I do know that like Samsung uses sometimes uses Odin. Well, that's their software for it, but I know with like the LG Vault, you have to use their version, their LG tool, to root your Vault because you have to actually downgrade it where it was able to be rooted, and then there's a recovery for the LG Vault which can't be like installed into the system, but you can actually like use it with ADB, and then you're supposed to like flash a rooted version of the ZV4, which is a lot of steps, which is why I never rooted the Vault because I just like I don't want to like have to go through all that, especially if I'm not even using the
Mm-hmm.
phone as a daily driver. Um, yeah, I don't know. HTC has always been a pain in the butt, and that's why I was kind of a little bit a little bit worried about helping Chen with that. At the same time, I was always like trying to tell him like talk with different developers on XDA just to get some more insight because I remember him telling me in the beginning that he was nervous about wanting to root his 601.
Yep.
And I was like, giving him the confidence, like, yeah, well, if you want to do it, do it. Just study up on it because that's like one thing that I do before I even attempt to just mess with any of my phones is like I'll spend maybe from like 11 o'clock at night after I put my daughter to sleep till like about 4 in the morning, just combing through all the forums of a specific device that I'm about to attempt to root and just gain all kinds of insight about it, what could go wrong, how to fix any issues that went wrong, and when I'm confident enough with all the information I have, then I put it to work. I'll still
Yeah.
help him.
And
That's one thing. I'll still help him if he needs it.
I'll do that too. Um, but yeah, like speaking of, you just mentioned LG Volt. That was gonna actually be my original phone before the S3 because the phone, my S3 was a surprise from my sister, and then they were at Best Buy getting it, and then the what I heard, she said that the clerk said that this phone was good for development. If I'm a nerd, it had a lot of development support, and that's one reason I do love this phone because the Volt doesn't have any ROMs, does it? Custom ROMs.
Nah, it doesn't have any. There was one, and I was trying to. I hope no one really actually fell for it, but there was one. I did a video about it where someone had posted that there was a lollipop ROM for it, and then when you went to click on the link to download it, you had to download it in three parts, and it gave you this whole spill of after you download the three parts, you have to combine all of them and re-zip them into one file. And I was like, no developer is gonna do that for anybody out there. Um, if a developer, an honest developer, built a lollipop ROM for the Vault, it would have been in one file download.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it was an AOSP, guaranteed you would have to download the ROM file itself and then GApps, um, for the Google Apps. And this one was so sketchy, so I was like trying to like, hopefully I got a couple of people not to try it because it was just too sketchy. It was on a website that I haven't even really heard of. You don't find anything related in Android forums or XDA. But as far as development for the Vault, there really isn't. The only ROM that they actually have that's like an actual full ROM is just the root version for ZV4, which is just basically like stock DODEX and rooted. That's it. Nothing with Lollipop. No, no custom ROMs that gives it a cosmetic difference. No development so far.
Mm-hmm. And to thing or something to say to everyone out there, if you ever root your phone and you flash a ROM and you didn't make a backup, if you didn't make a backup, always have a copy of the stock ROM. At least have a copy of the stock ROM so if you mess up something, you can go back to that stock ROM, flash it, everything will be good and ready to go. I made that mistake on my Victory when I flashed Cyanogen Mod because the Victory doesn't have much support. It has what is that ROM called? Conquest. It has a Conquest ROM. The S3 also has a Conquest ROM, but I don't use it because it's based on TouchWiz and it's slow. But that version of Cyanogen Mod was like an alpha build, so it would like force restart itself every 5 minutes, and I was like, well, I can't do this. I need something that's usable, and I didn't have a stock ROM. So when I wiped my phone, I had nothing. And that's where I
Okay.
made a mistake at. So when I had to get another one because I had no one that can help me out, like to say, hey, can I use your computer so I could put this ROM on my phone and not anything like that. So I had to get another one, and I looked up stock ROM, put it on my micro SD card, and I was good.
Yeah, that's like one thing like when people message me like on Hangouts because like Hangouts is open. I've always said this on my videos. If anyone wants to get in touch with me like really fast and get a fast response, hit me up on Hangouts. Sending me a message on YouTube. I don't check the YouTube messages, but maybe like once a day, and that's at night when I'm about to go to bed. But like, if you need help like right away, like hit me up on Hangouts. And I get the same question always because people will be like, I flashed this, it's not booting up, it's stuck in boot loop. What do I do? I need help. And then like my first question back to them is, did you create a backup? And they're like, no. And I was like, you know, from my experience, I've when the first time I ever I had like the Samsung Intercept, that little small slider phone on Virgin Mobile.
Yeah, I remember that phone.
They had I really wouldn't call them ROMs because a lot of them were always based on Froyo and it was just different themes. So I really wouldn't call them like actual true ROMs. But anyway, so I flashed one just right off the bat. I think it was B-ROM is what it was called. I flashed that one right off the bat and I didn't make a backup and it was stuck in boot loop and I was going in recovery and I was trying to wipe data factory reset and that didn't help and I was like, gosh, what do I do? And so I went to I think it's sdxdevelopers.com and I started asking around in there and I got the same thing that I tell people. They're like, did you make a backup? I was like, oh god, no, I didn't. And they're like, one person flamed me. They were like, dude, you always freaking make a backup. Like, don't flash things unless you know what the hell you're doing. Like, he got on me real bad, and I was like, oh, shut up, dude. Just
I mean,
tell me what you got.
and then one thing, I mean, you can't get mad at him for saying that though,
Yeah.
because I mean, I was told the same thing in the same way, dude. Did you make a backup? You always make a backup before you do anything, flash anything. And I try to tell Chin that if he's ever going to wipe his system completely, like when he goes into recovery and wipe the system, at least if you did not make a backup, have a copy of the stock ROM. I don't know if HTC or anybody on XDA has made a copy of the stock ROM,
It
but
actually is. Before I sold the 601 to a friend of mine, I like the one problem with insert coin ROM that was for it, which basically just gave it sense 6. If you like say there was a glitch and you went into recovery and you wiped data, it would erase Google applications. So like the Play Store was gone, um, Chrome was gone. You couldn't download anything whatsoever. It just had basic applications from HTC, and it was like wow. So I went through a lot of different posts, and I actually found um, the stock KitKat that is rooted, and so I got that on there, and I had to reinstall a recovery because they had put back on the factory recovery. And I was like, crap. So I had to get a bunch of things on there just by Bluetoothing a bunch of applications to the phone, and then install the recovery, and then flash the ROM. So there is actually a stock ROM for the Desire 601 that has root still enabled. But you actually choose if you want it rooted or not, because when you're flashing the ROM, it has like aroma installer, and that's like one of the questions
mm-hmm.
that it asks you is if you want to enable root or disable root. Of course, I'm going to enable root just in case the person that I sold it to wants to have it rooted already. They don't have to go through the headaches. So there is a stock one out there.
Hey, will that work for Chin? Like if he downloads that and then flashes it, will it be rooted, or does he have to do the old-fashioned root method that he's already trying to do right now?
I'm not sure. I really am not sure because he hasn't gotten it rooted. I know he has recovery on there, and it might work. So I might shoot him the link to that ROM and just have him place it on his SD card and try flashing it. But I'm not, if the bootloader is unlocked and everything, it should go through fine. The problem he's gonna have is with the kernel, and that's what soff is for. Is if it's S on, then you can flash the ROM, but then you gotta use ADB to push the kernel over. Um, if you're S off, then you can just flash the ROM and everything will go just fine. You won't have to go that extra step of connecting it with ADB and pushing the kernel in manually. So it's still a lot
I'm
of
about
work.
to actually. Sorry for interrupting. I'm actually about to shoot him a Hangout message to see if he has the bootloader unlocked. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Um, yeah, that's like I don't know. I feel real bad. I would have sold him the phone if he wanted it. If I knew that, because like I said, like for me, if no one hits me up in a few days, I'm thinking they may have found help that was better than what I was offering, or they might have gotten it to where they needed to get it. So I'll just assume like okay, everything was okay, and then it went. I think he sent me a message earlier today, but I was dropping my mom off at the airport, so.
And another thing, Nexus. What is your take on the Nexus line?
Uh, I can honestly tell people like I've not owned a Nexus. You know, I actually own one and used it as a daily driver. I have a few people that I know that have Nexus devices. Um, where they're going with it, and I think Kevin the Tech Ninja kind of said this in a nutshell, basically. But the whole thing of when they're talking about like Android Silver and how it was going to be like premium devices and stuff like that. I really do think that they actually hit it with the Nexus 6. I mean, you look at the price point with that phone, and it's just equivalent to a high flagship device, and it's sad because Nexus has always, for me, it's always been like kind of like your avenue away from the carriers, and like just for you to have something that you can just basically say is your own. The no carrier influence whatsoever, and of course the price points were lower, so it made it easier to get into people's hands without having to decide whether they needed to fix their car or buy a phone. It's totally nuts where it's going right now. I hope that maybe with the Nexus 6 and the Nexus 9, the price points and all the stuff that happened, including with AT&T, I'm hoping that maybe at some point they kind of look at it and they're like, okay, this is a failed experiment. Let's go back to kind of how we were doing it before with the Nexus 5, the 4, the Galaxy Nexus, and so on, and just keep it right there because I mean, with those devices, as their price point and the way they function, it was unbeatable. The only problem that I've seen people have with Nexus devices was always like camera issue or battery issue. Was always
Mm-hmm.
like the two major things that people talked about. But really, like hardly anyone ever really got onto like price point, and then, like I said, with the carrier influence on the Nexus 6, it just seemed to like have such bad results. Some people, I mean, besides the fact that it was big, and some people were like, it's too big. Um, like I seen AT&T their problem with the Nexus 6 because they wanted to brand it with their stuff, including adding a logo to the back that had the AT&T logo, and then putting in like AT&T bloatware. And the first batch that came out from AT&T was so screwed up that when people turned it on, it just booted into I think it was like a bootloader or something like that. It wouldn't even boot the operating system. But people were kind of like freaking out because it had KitKat on it. Obviously, I guess in the
What?
text that they saw. Yeah, in the text that they saw on the screen, it pops up like a bootloader, and it has all this text on it. And I guess a person caught it where it said KitKat, and like AT&T did a recall on all the new Nexus 6s that they had released from when they finally opened it up with AT&T. And I mean that goes to show, like with the carrier influence and stuff like that, it just ruins the whole Nexus experience. I mean, Nexus was basically to everybody was like raw dog Google basically, no carrier influence. You don't have to lease a 2-year contract for it. You can just buy one outright from the Play Store and have it shipped to you and just run a SIM card in it. I think they're kind of losing sight of that, and that's what people loved about Nexus. That's kind of like what I think about it. Like it needs to go back to the way it was. It wasn't broken.
And see, my thing with Nexus, like with the release of the Galaxy Nexus. No, I'm not gonna even say the Galaxy Nexus. The Nexus 4. Remember when Jelly Bean released? You remember how Google Now was all new and everything like that? I think that it said something for Google, like the future. Um, and it's sad to see like my favorite phone of the Nexus line. And it's not because I'm a Samsung fanboy. It's just my favorite phone, the Galaxy Nexus. It's sad to see that didn't get the KitKat update. I know why I didn't get Lollipop because I mean the phone's going on 4 years old. Because of the chip that was in it, it didn't get the KitKat update. But I mean, here's my thing with Android updates. I'm gonna get on that too. Fragmentation. Fragmentation. It's horrible. My phone, I know, is more than capable of running Lollipop, but it's stuck on KitKat. And what is your take on fragmentation?
I mean, well, with it's kind of a like a back and forth with me. But at the same time, like I can kind of understand. It's frustrating with it when Like one thing that iOS users can use against us is the fact that when they have an update that comes out, all of them get the update. No one's left behind. And it sucks that Android can't say that. But then again, like Android, you know, they work with different manufacturers, and this is the toughest part. I've said this in videos before. When it comes to updates, it's like a pair bond. It's like Google comes up with it, but the manufacturers have to find a way to incorporate it with their hardware. And you have some manufacturers who really don't care, in my opinion. Like say Kyocera for existence, or for an example, it took them a long time to put KitKat on the Hydra icon. So that creates a problem. And as you have people who have devices like say like the Galaxy S3 and it was on Jelly Bean, and and it gets a KitKat update like maybe months or almost a year after the release of KitKat, and then it doesn't see like they just decide to stop the development for it, the actual development for it, to have it get Lollipop. It gets frustrating for people. One thing is that people are deadlocked in 2-year contracts, so it's not like they can just up and grab a phone that has Lollipop on it or whatever. And I think manufacturers, they kind of like they they give up on older devices, or they give this thing of like if they wanted to keep their older devices up to date, they would have to hire like a whole new team of developers and have them work on older devices, and then that's going to cost more. And if it costs more, those devices are going to have to get sold at a higher price, cost of labor, and all that other stuff. And it's like it's sad, really. It's like a sacrifice. You wanted different types of manufacturers making devices that would hold Android, so it gave everyone a bit of that, a bit of this, something different, something new, skins over Android or just pure vanilla. It just you wanted more variety, so now you have to sacrifice, on the fact that not everyone's going to have the updates exactly on the same time. And it sucks, but that's the reality of it. And really, I mean, unless we're willing to give up and actually deadlock ourselves to one manufacturer, there's really nothing we can do about that. And
And now, and sorry for interrupting. Now, I realize why all iOS devices are the same and have no more features, no less features, or anything. They're all the same. Thank you for telling me that.
yeah, yeah, it's like I have this conversation with a lot of people, even with random people that here in Phoenix that have recognized me from YouTube, and they're like, "Oh, you're that guy." Yeah, I'm that guy. And they'll go into it and they'll be like, "Well, why is Android like this? How come my wife's phone has KitKat and I'm still on gingerbread?" And I'm like, "You're, you know." I think one of the best blessings we had was when HTC decided to show that developer table on their website on how they update a device and what it has to go through, and it had like all these different trails, and then the trails had different colors because like the different colors represented whether they were Google Play editions, international versions, or carrier versions. And like the carrier versions had such a long path to go through and so many checkpoints of what they had to do. And it really opened up my eyes and a lot of people's eyes to how they update devices. And with the carrier path, it's a lot of BS because there's so many checkpoints that they has to go through. Like, for instance, they say like the Desire 601, it was going to go from Jelly Bean to KitKat. So Virgin Mobile is the carrier for it, and so it's going through its path. They have it in integration, I think, for like a long time, and it was ready to be put out when they said it was going to be available, but it took longer because Virgin wasn't happy with how the ROM itself came out. One of the things they didn't like was the fact that they wanted to cut out a lot of the bloatware that Virgin Mobile has on there, like AirG and all that other stuff that they throw up on it that hardly anyone uses. And because of that, it had to keep going back in a circle for a good amount of time before Virgin Mobile okayed for it to actually get pushed to the stage where they push out the update. And so that really opened it up for a lot of people to understand, like, okay, it's not just a thing of we have KitKat, let's throw cents on top of it and just push it out. It doesn't work that way. They have to, well, as far as carrier wise, they have to work with the carriers. And the carriers, again, so I don't like carriers, they're nitpicky on what they think their customers would like rather than listening to what the customers actually like. And if you go on any website that has to do with mobile tech, one of the things that millions of people like really stress is they're tired of bloatware. They don't want applications on their phone that they don't need or don't will never use. And that's why I think like for me, a perfect carrier would be a carrier that would not give you bloatware. The carrier that would give you a device that has the essential applications you need, like text messaging, Google Play, music, you know, browser, and that's about it. And then you could download whatever else you wanted. But no carrier is going to go that route because, of course, they have their sponsors and all that other crap, and so they gotta please them. So in that small nutshell, inside of the big nutshell of fragmentation, we get all this crap that we have to deal with, and we look at iOS and they're all the same update. You know, they do leave behind some of their older devices though. But I mean, that's like I guess when
Yeah.
they feel like statistically more people have moved on because they only have like one device really per year that they release, and so there's not different types of an iPhone. There's just except for this year we had a 6 and 6 Plus, but like the iPhone 5S, the iPhone 5, the iPhone 5C. Before that, it was just like the 4, the 4S, then the 3, the 3G, the 3GS. Um, but really they really stick to just one type, and so there's not an opening to have that type of fragmentation that Android has. It sucks, but I don't know. I mean, let me ask you this: on your stand about fragmentation, would would you to have all your phones on the same operating system? Would you give up having variety, for different manufacturers to have that, or would you be okay with variety and stay in like the fragmentation problems that we have today?
Um, this is the thing about that. I don't honestly know. Because I always want to have the latest and greatest features, and like when I learned that the S3 wasn't getting Lollipop, I was like, crap, I can't have like ambient display and stuff like that. So part of me wants to leave, but part of me wants to stay because the features that were already there, like I use a whole bunch of gimmicky features that a lot of people don't like. I know my phone doesn't have this, but I would use it. Like, what is that feature on the S4 and the S5 where you can scroll with your eyes and stuff like that? I would honestly use that. Like, I don't know why, but I would.
I think I forgot what it's
Yeah,
called. I'm thinking it's smart view or smart stay or something like that. Like
smart,
watch your
smart.
eyes.
Yeah, Smart Stay is the one that I have smart. Well, I'm not on touch with, so I can't use it. But Smart Stay is the one that you look at it and the screen stays on. It's Smart Scroll. That's what it is. Like I would use something like that. So, and no other manufacturer has that. Like I know LG has like pause, the feature where you can look at your phone and when you look at way, it can pause. But that's the same thing as tapping on the screen once. So it's kind of half and half with me. What I would do,
I think a lot
but
of people answer that the same way.
yeah. But part of me would stay, part of me would go. But overall, I mean, I want to say most of me would go because, as you can see, I'm on CM12, which is a near stock version of Android. It has a few tweaks and mods and stuff, but nothing major. It's mainly stock Android. And I left TouchWiz for that. I left my Smart Stay feature, and like another thing on TouchWiz is you can swipe the screenshot. I left that. I love that so much because I have an OtterBox case on my phone, and when
Yeah.
OtterBoxes wear out over time, and every time I would press the phone or press the buttons hard on the phone, they would just like get unclicky and stuff like that, and then you have stuff. I don't know if you can see it, like it's drooping off the edge a little bit.
Oh
Stuff
yeah.
like that will start happening. So I kind of missed that because I didn't like pressing and holding my buttons on my phone. But stuff like that, I mean, I do miss, and it's kind of hard. Like it's crazy. But I mean, I wanted the latest and greatest, so I went for Lollipop instead of being on Kit Kat.
Yeah, I totally hear you on that, man. I mean, I don't know. I think I think what for a lot of us techies out there, I think what kind of holds us at bay with all this is and this is why I give a huge shout out, thumbs up to all the developers out there. If it wasn't for them, and they are a huge part of Android's success. Even though they don't work for Google, they can be living in an apartment or in their mom's house in the basement, in their bat cave or whatever. These guys, they pump out ROMs, and they even, at times when they figure out how to port features from one type of phone from a manufacturer to a completely different manufacturer's model phone. And that's crazy how they can do that. And I think that's what really helps, especially with the whole fragmentation thing and all that, is the fact that they give you something that is either close to it, or they find a way to port it over to where you can use it. And that's where I feel like that's what holds it down for Android is developers. And
But
shout out to all of them out there.
I mean, I also want to give a shout out to all the developers because I mean, if it wasn't for them, my Galaxy S3 would be just a paperweight right now. If it wasn't for the developers, I would have nothing. But I mean, you also got to think not a lot of people are techies out there. So I mean, you have people, let's say, that bought a Galaxy S3 in 2012 when it first released. Yeah, I got the Android 4.1 update because you remember it was on Ice Cream Sandwich, which I found ridiculous. It got the 4.1 update, it got the 4.3 update, it got the 4.4 update. But it's not getting Lollipop, and then they see all their friends around them that have S5s that go out and spend $700 on this phone. And they're like, well, you got Lollipop, we'll eventually get Lollipop soon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm still on KitKat, but I back when I bought this phone, it was also $700. And then the same person that's not a techie, that's just a regular businessman going to and from work every day, and then they just wonder why, hey, why don't I have this? And then they go out and buy an iPhone. So it's crazy how
Yeah.
tech works or Android works.
Yeah. But I do gotta cut this because I think we've been on for like an hour and a half, or almost. I think roughly about there. That's like 8:23 my time. Um, but yeah. So that was a pretty long video. So for those of you guys, don't comment that and be like it's super long. Yeah, it's gonna be. It's a live stream, and so yeah, first introduction to Ronald, who's a part of the panel right now. I'm actually gonna be working with him from this point on out with the live shows, and a couple other people I got in mind. I gotta shoot them an email to see if they want to get in on it. But if you want to be a part of it, any of you guys out there who don't mind getting on camera and having this big old long discussion about mobile tech, shoot me an email. I'll link it in the description on YouTube. Just give me an email. Let me know if you guys want to get in on it. I think Hangouts allows you to have up to 10 people at a time. That'd be like crazy mad if we had 10 people on here at one time. So many thoughts just going all around. But yeah, just leave me an email. Let me know. And thanks for joining me on the show, dude. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun going through all
Thanks
that
for having
stuff.
me.
Yeah, definitely. So again, I'm Rob with Aloha Android, and Ronald. I'll see you guys next time.
See ya.